Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use Excel to solve problems involving z-scores and the standard normal distribution. Excel has two functions for computing probabilities based on z-scores, z-values, and the standard normal probability distribution. First one is norm.s from standard normal. Dist computes the cumulative probability given a z-score. Let's say I have a z-score and I want to find the probability. And then we have norm.s inverse, which gives us the ability to compute a z-score, a z-value based on a cumulative probability. So let's take a look at the kinds of problems we can have. Compute probabilities from z-scores. If we want to know the probability based on a z-score, we use this function, norm.s dist, open parentheses, the z-score, comma 1. This is to compute, I'm going to show you how to do that in Excel, but this is to illustrate how to use the formulas if I want to know the probability that a z-score be higher than negative 0.5 but smaller than 1.5. I do norm s dist first 1.25, which is the highest number, minus norm s dist, and then negative 0.05, the lowest number. Okay, if I want to know the probability that z is higher than 1.58 or any given number, we do 1 minus norm.s dist. Okay, let me show you how to do that in Excel. Hold on. This is the week 2 in class file. Okay. So compute the probability that z is smaller, is lower than or equal to 1. So this is equal norm.s dist. So the z value is 1. And then that's the z value I typed it here, then I type comma, and then I type 1 again to say that is a cumulative probability that I want. That's the probability that I have a z-score lower than 1. Okay, if I want a z-score between 0.05 and negative 0.05, no, I'm sorry, negative 0.5 and 1.25, what I do is equal norm dot s dist, open parentheses, first the biggest number, the highest number, 1.25, then I type comma, always I type 1 for the cumulative, minus norm dot s dist, and then I type negative 0.5, and then I comma, and I type 1 again, and I have the answer of 50.5858. Okay, so you can keep doing that, and let's say I want, for this one, I want to know what's the probability that z is higher than 2.5, so it's equal 1 minus norm dot s dist 2.5, and then comma, cumulative equal to 1, so probability is very small. Okay, so this is how you do this kind of problem. And also, if you want to compute what is the z-score based on a probability, this is the formula, this is some examples. This one we have to be careful, I'm going to show you in Excel. So z-value computations. So what is the z-value with 0.10 in the upper tail? Let me show you oops, I'm sorry. Here, remember we had this same problem before in the upper tail. Let me use a different color here. Let me erase this. So if I want to know what is the z-score that gives me 0.10 in the upper tail, what I'm going to have here is, instead of 3, now I have 10% in the upper tail. Okay, so what is the z-score here that gives me 10% in the upper tail? I cannot use 10 directly in Excel because Excel will think that it is the 10% in the lower tail. So what I have to do is subtract 100 from 10%, which is 90%, which is 0.90, or I have to do 1 minus 1.10 in the decimal form, which is 0.90. Okay, so you have to be careful if it's upper tail, lower tail. This is the reason we have 0.9 here. Z value with 0.10 in the upper tail is 0.9, because again we have to get 100% of the entire figure, subtract what I want in the upper tail, and the resulting number I turn into decimal format, and that's the value I enter into Excel. So let's do this here. Value 0.10 in the upper tail, norm dot s inverse. What's the probability? 0.90, because I want to know the 0.10 in the upper tail. So 1.28 is the z-score that gives me 0.10 in the upper tail. So this is z-score here is 1.28. Okay, let's do that for the z-value that gives me 0.30 in the upper tail is norm dot s inverse. So if I subtract 1 minus 0.3, I have 0.70 or 0.7, either one. Okay, 0.7 is the value that gives me 0.3 in the upper tail. So this is the z-score. In the lower tail, we use that number directly, which equal norm.s inverse. So the probability, because it's in the lower tail, I don't have to do any computation, simply type 0.3. Is a negative number because it's below the mean, is in the lower tail. And the same thing here, equal norm.s inverse, and then I have 0.1. Okay, so this is how you solve these problems in Excel.